Thank you for inviting and remembering rural surgeons. I would like to start by thanking Mr. Prashant Apte for inviting me to this wonderful group of people who are stakeholders in medical devices. I'm going to talk to you about the needs from rural areas. Why is rural areas different from the rest? The first and foremost thing is that most of the people living in rural areas are poor and the paying capacity is limited. And the need for quick turnover in the meager facilities that are available in rural areas make it important that they also need minimally invasive surgeries. And moreover, they need to get back to work much more quickly compared to the urban counterparts. And many of the places, as you can see in this picture, do not have power supply. And even if they have power supply, they fluctuate so much. And of course, maintenance equipment is pretty difficult in rural areas. All these things make it very different from the requirements in urban or bigger areas. However, the magnitude is huge, as you can see. 30% of the global disease burden is surgical. And only about 3.5% of these are carried out in the poorer nations. Although the Lancet estimates the need for surgical procedures at almost 5,000 per 1 lakh population, many of the rural areas, including those where we have worked, this is far less than 300. And the national average in India is only about 800. And this is because the number of operating rooms available in rural areas is very few, less than 1 operating room per 1 lakh population. While in most of the Western country, they have more than 14. And even though almost half the population live in rural areas, only a fifth of the surgical workforce live in rural areas. And there are far fewer anesthesiologists compared to surgeons in rural areas. So the need is quite huge in rural areas. And why is this important? Because not only that 5 billion lack surgical care, but then investing in surgery is an affordable and life-saving thing which leads to economic growth. So it's important that we do invest in surgical care. I'm talking from the experience of almost working for 4 decades in rural and remote areas of our country. In fact, I had the opportunity for directly getting involved in almost 1 lakh or 100,000 surgical procedures in these rural areas. There are many modifications which the rural surgeons come up with to may minimize the cost or lower the cost, starting from the special water heaters, solar water heaters, or water softeners, inverters, or generators made from vehicle batteries, or the car headlamp for surgical lights, manual suction. And even well before the corona pandemic, they were using industrial oxygen instead of the medical oxygen. And of course, they are very good at instant solutions. When there is a problem present, they don't have too much time to think of. In fact, we used air from dental compressor for insufflation during laparoscopic surgeries. And even when that runs out and is not there in some places, we used nitrous oxide from the anesthesia machine for it. In fact, once, even though we had made preparations for backup power supply, both the original planned one and the backup failed. So we had to complete appendicectomy using a cell phone camera and torchlight for providing the light for the laparoscopic surgery. And of course, we are done, as the picture shows, cystoscopies and other procedures using this powerful Chinese torchlight. And we also made many of the low-cost devices. For example, the conventional vacuum therapy units are very expensive. We worked with the Karunya University to produce a very low-cost device, which is about 1/20th of the cost of the standard device. And here on the picture, there is a low-cost endoloop, which is made from the ordinary proline suture material and the pusher that is used for double J stenting. And one other thing which we reached all the way up to mention in the World Health Organization is the use of mosquito net instead of the proline hernia, because research showed that both exactly the same material. And the Association of Rural Surgeons of India, of which I was the past president, has produced these low-cost ventilators, which can run on almost anything, electricity, compressed air, or can even manually be operated. And the rural surgeons, especially those belonging to the Association of Rural Surgeons of India, are experts in using the available resources for things which are not available. For example, this picture shows how we use a cystoscope for diagnostic laparoscopies and taking biopsies, and quite a few of these diagnostic laparoscopies were possible in rural areas using the cystoscope and the ordinary BP cuff insufflation. This helped them save a lot of money for travel to urban areas and having procedures like diagnostics like CT scan and MRI and so on, because there's nothing better than actually looking at it and making the diagnosis. And then later on, we even upgraded to doing minor small procedures like appendicectomy and tubal ligations, and even feeding jejunostomies using the cystoscope. And this is one thing which we have been really doing more than almost 5,000 such surgeries we have done in rural areas, is to use the ureterorhinoscope, which is traditionally used only for stones in the ureter, for removing even large kidney stones. And we realized that the first stage it's a stage procedure with involves DJ stenting in the first stage. Because once you put in the stent, it dilates the ureter to about 2 to 3 times the original size. And then the ureteroscope could be used to look at the kidney and break the stones. And we also developed various methods for making the lower calyceal stones come up to the pelvis. And then this could have been possible by the local rural surgeons if they had the cystoscope. But then having a cystoscope is expensive. Even the low-cost Chinese ones are quite expensive. So we came up with this instrument called the laptop cystoscope, which can be just connected to any laptop computer and provides necessary pictures or means of doing procedures like DJ stenting. And another thing which we have done is less expensive alternatives. See, now there is a lot of people promoting laser surgeries for prostate and bladder tumors and so on. We have been doing this vaporization surgeries, which is almost exactly equivalent to laser surgeries, but much faster than even laser surgeries, and obviously several times less expensive for doing these vaporization surgeries, which is almost bloodless. So we can do quite a lot of prostate and bladder tumor surgeries in rural and remote areas. We also use the urology equipment for treating infertility, like having a look at the fallopian tube and removing small tumors in the uterus and so on. But what excites us most is the new equipment that we have got for doing laparoscopic surgeries, under spinal anesthesia using this special equipment for lifting the anterior abdominal wall for doing laparoscopic surgeries. The main problem in rural areas is that almost 50% or 48% to be precise, do not have facilities for general anesthesia. And laparoscopic surgery, unfortunately, the conventional one needs general anesthesia for carrying it out. And this gas insufflation is what makes all the equipment, everything expensive. And general anesthesia also is several times more expensive than spinal anesthesia. So with this method of doing laparoscopy surgery, with this gas insufflation-less method, we have been able to take laparoscopy surgeries to very, very remote and rural areas. We've also worked with the University of Leeds to develop the second generation of equipment for gas insufflation-less laparoscopic surgeries by a method called participatory design, where the various stakeholders join together to present their need and involved in the design, both from the surgical team and the engineering team. And what is necessary is that since rural surgery is necessary for all over the world, you need to have research which is specific for rural surgery, which leads to frugal innovations. And we need to, it's a collaborative responsibility for all of us to provide this to the rural surgeons and rural surgical care. So the two associations that I'm involved with, the Association of Rural Surgeons of India and the International Federation of Rural Surgeons, joined together to form this Rural Surgery Research and Training Center. Right now it is located in a place called Biru in one of the backward districts of Jharkhand. And we are planning on various training programs with the Martin Luther University and research program with the various universities to develop rural surgery specific research. What are the requirements right now? We don't have quite a lot of hand instruments which are specific for the gas insufflation-less laparoscopic surgeries. Here, it can be more sturdy, it can be much less expensive because there's no problem about gas leak. And again, low-cost sterilization of the equipment is necessary for laparoscopic surgeries. And if there is any way of having low-cost vessel sealing equipment, that'll help a lot in providing minimally invasive surgeries, because we have done quite a lot of single incision surgeries using the gas-less laparoscopic surgery method. In addition, we also need low-cost equipment for training. What has been the impact of this? In fact, the last couple of years, we've been able to do more than 2,400 gasless laparoscopic surgeries in very remote and rural areas, and train about more than 10 rural surgeons to perform these surgeries. And we have done more than 5,000 kidney stone surgeries. We come up with some patented devices, some training programs, and researches which are specific to rural areas with well-known universities. So finally, what is the take-home message for people involved in medical devices? One, it has to be a low cost, which is very obvious. And the next thing is that it has to be as simple as possible. This is what Einstein said, you try and make things as simple as possible. And then it needs to be sturdy. And always the local person who is available there should be able to repair or troubleshoot and repair if necessary. And it has to be easy to learn. I hope this would encourage many of you to look at the option of developing equipment which are necessary for the rural surgeons. Thank you.